Our clients right now are have a lot of information at their fingertips with social media, with different websites, but we're there to interpret that information and bring them value, help them make money, help them save money, help protect them with their investments and their purchases. And then when you build that trust, it's a long-lasting relationship.
All right. Hi, Amy.
Hi, how are you, Nicole? So
I'm
nice.
great. How are you doing?
Good, good.
We're shooting this right in the kind of final stretch of winter. I'm excited for the spring.
Oh, everyone is, but
I know.
spring market has hit, I'll tell you that.
Yes, yes. So we can jump right in. I am thrilled to be here with you today. If you could, don't mind introducing yourself for anyone listening that doesn't know who you are.
Sure. Hi, I'm Amy Mizner. I'm a senior VP and I work out of the Western office of Gibson Sotheby's International Realty. I started my career in advertising, where I worked with some of the greatest advertising minds in the business. And I took that career to real estate in 1995. And from there, I worked 15 years taking and building my own luxury brand. And then in 2010, with two partners, we started our own independent boutique luxury real estate company. And 10 years later, with 100 agents and four offices, we decided to sell to Gibson Sotheby's. And Gibson Sotheby's, their brand and culture aligned with my brand for servicing my luxury clients. And then once again, post COVID, 5 years ago, started a powerhouse urban suburban network. It's made up of a diverse group of talented agents that work in the MetroWest luxury market. And my urban partner, Will Montero, is in Boston. And once again, it's just been, you know, recreating myself with the Gibson brand, which has been very exciting.
And that was what sparked this conversation was I happened to be in the office with you and I asked you what was going on. And I was just asking about the high end, like let's differentiate between 2 and 4 million. And I was asking a lot of those questions because I'm trying to, make sure that I'm communicating that with the company. And I'm always trying to tune into specific regions and price points. And it got me thinking that night about just all these micro markets. Like we have all these micro markets within the company now. We cover, obviously, we have 30 plus offices. And just within Mass, we just have so many little nuances. And then you have, whether you have, new construction versus historic, but like then you have these very specific price ranges that are almost their own micro market. That 2 to 4 million might be a different market than a buyer coming in at 5 plus and or like below 1 million or whatever that looks like. And so you can't just say, hey, what's going on in the market in Weston? You have to really drill down into what's going on in each kind of pocket. And so that was when I reached out to you and said, this would be such a great topic. And it's something that we realized as we talked through that actually would really apply across the nation, because the price points usually will translate those micro markets across the board. So what you're telling me is going on in a specific price point is usually what's going on, at least in New England, with that specific price point. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the high-end market is really about an attitude and understanding who your client base is. Once again, in the Metro West and in towns in Boston like Beacon Hill and Back Bay, we really call the high-end buyer. It's 5 million plus. It really is like 8 or 10 million plus now with prices, and we really have to bring value. We really have to understand their needs. We're their real estate advisors. And especially with low inventory, we really have to have a pulse on the market. And so that these people, when they're hiring you as their buyer's agents, they're getting value. Our clients right now are have a lot of information at their fingertips with social media, with different websites, but we're there to interpret that information and bring them value, help them make money, help them save money, help protect them with their investments and their purchases. And then when you build that trust, it's a long-lasting relationship.
Yeah, I love that. I think what differentiates, to me, what differentiates people, salespeople that operate in this, like these price points, is that you really are, everyone is an advisor, and I'm not taking away from that. But if your average sales price is, say, somewhere in this area below 1.5 million, those are going to be less frequent transactions and a different type of buyer that might, they might have an investment property here or there, but they're likely not a portfolio. Whereas if you're getting into these 5 million plus or 8 to 10 million, that's someone that likely is holding a lot of real estate, right? So it becomes almost more like a financial advisor, in that you need to like really stay in touch and really be advising every single year on decisions that they're making. You need to know what their portfolio looks like, right? I mean, you can obviously attest to that, but there's just a different and deeper rooted and more frequent touches needed in the relationship for you to understand, right, when the best time is to sell something. And then to that end, what you're selling and what your clients might be looking for, they're not always necessarily looking. So, somebody that's searching, a first-time home buyer in $1 million range around here, they're really looking. Someone in a $10 million property, you have to know your client to put that in front of them. And if you're representing the $10 million listing, right, you need to know, who are you getting this in front of? Can you walk us through how
Mhm.
you do that when you have a listing of that nature? That's not going to be someone that's refreshing their feed all day looking for something necessarily.
No, no, it's all about attitude. It's all about the presentation and the attitude. And even when I do a tour of one of my listings, I really take the cues from the buyers that are walking through, because one person's needs might be different from another person's needs. And bigger isn't necessarily better. And square footage isn't a turn on. Value might be what they're looking for. So it's really tapping into the needs of a high net worth buyer and focusing and honing in on what are their needs. How could we satisfy those needs? How could we solve problems to satisfy those needs? Um, and we find that because a big trend, because once again, the, is, the lower level living spaces. Um, right now, somebody might use one room so differently than another room. It might become a music room. Somebody might have a wine collection of 10,000 bottles and need to create that, and the space doesn't handle that. Other people, it's a 3-car garage and somebody really wants a 6-car garage. So, I mean, once again, working with high-end clients, whether you're selling their homes or they're purchasing, it's really honing in on what are their needs. That's goes across every price range, but once again, their needs get very specific. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times it's privacy and confidentiality and how things are handled.
Do you think the mortgage rates are impacting the high-end market really at this point?
All of the press that you read say it isn't because they're paying cash, but I really feel that it does because they leverage themselves. And they might not take out a mortgage for a full amount, but when you could borrow money for 2.5% and 3%, people were buying things without thinking twice. So
Mm-hmm.
now there's a much more cerebral layer that's being added to any real estate purchase, whether it's in the luxury market of, let's say, 10 million or up, or in the lower price ranges.
What trends do you feel like are defining that luxury market right now in your specific
What
area?
what I love about Sotheby's is their ad campaign really mirrors like what's going on now, and it's about uniqueness. It's about somebody, and this is really a post-COVID kind of an attitude of, my home is now my happy place, and I want it to be where I come home and it meets my needs in terms of my lifestyle, which is getting very family driven. Children are visiting. I have little children. Where are they going to, be put? It's becoming multi-generational. So people want guest homes. They want suites for visiting parents, nanny suites. So it really is very experience driven. Um, they're looking for their well-being now post-COVID, but people are working in a hybrid work situation and they're still working out of their homes. So multiple offices are key. And I love when people say man cave. I mean, that's become, an outdated term because women are a big buying power now. And they need big, major home offices as well. So these dual home offices have become very on trend.
Yes.
And so I think it's become a very, what is the experience that you want from your home? I'm seeing that there's more of a nesting instinct because real estate has become so expensive. And when you're spending a lot of money for a home, you want it just the way you want it.
And our homes have become, even for me, it might have coincided for me that like I have two toddlers. Like, so, since COVID, I've become more apt to be home and really, I was living in the city in a condo with my fiance when COVID hit. So that might be a little bit of part of it, but also like that piece of my generation, that's a big
Hmm.
portion of the population. And I think having worked in real estate, I couldn't agree with you more. And that is not specific to the price point. Across the board, homes have become just I don't know, I guess just more important, the space. It's less of like just where I am. And because people aren't that term bedroom communities where people are
Hmm.
just getting up at 5 a.m. every day and they're leaving for work and their kids are at school and you're barely at home. With the work from home, like you said, the dual offices, it's like people are just looking for so much more across every price point, and they need to because they need the space to live. So it's definitely, I think, changed. And my question is, do you have, I don't know, do you have any opinion on what that might look like and shift toward in the future? Are there things that you expect people to be looking for in terms of buyers in the high end going forward?
It's interesting because the center of the home was always the family room. It's become the kitchen. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
dual islands, like, these huge islands where you have these large homes and everybody gathers when you're entertaining around the kitchen. Everybody's
Mm-hmm.
a foodie. Everybody's, wine enjoys wine, great wine. And so the kitchen's become a new trend. And I think that's going to stay there as long as there's people are working and living and enjoying out of their homes. Built-in barbecues and built-in bar areas and entertaining at home. People are having babies, and they want to be the magnets of when their children get older to come back and hang and visit
Mm-hmm.
and stay. So I think those trends are going to continue. I think since real estate has become so expensive, even in the high end, people will come and look at a home and they want to change everything. They want to change the kitchen. They want to change the primary suites. So you're going to see more of a nesting instinct. Once you're going to see renovations are coming back because the tried and true of location, location, location is a trend that's here now instead of condition,
Mm-hmm.
condition, condition. And you're seeing some custom homes in the high end coming on for the first time in 20 years for resales. And they're very, very special custom built homes, but the next homeowner wants to make it their own. So, being that renovation and building has become so expensive, I'm seeing a future trend is, nesting, seeing it as an investment. I'll stay here longer. I'm not looking for something turnkey and it's just a transaction and it's a place to hang your coat and to sleep at night. But it's a lifestyle. And if they're not finding what they want, they're looking for land to build. That's a trend that's going to continue as well. They want it their way. Um,
Right. We essentially just did that. Sounds insane, but we knew exactly where we wanted to be in the town that we moved to, and we bought a house that, it's just a matter of time before we're probably going to tear it down. It's just we wanted that exact location, and that's where we went. And I think that that's a lot of people now. Like you're saying, it's so important to have that homes exactly how they want. So they're either doing major renovations but they're willing to get that location for sure.
schools in the schools. I mean,
Yes.
pre-COVID, it was like walk to everything. Everybody wanted to walk to the train, walk to the town center. But in the high-end market, they want the privacy. They want their place to be their kingdom. Schools are still important because it's for resale. Their children could be going to private schools, but then they all of a sudden transition to the public schools in great communities. So schools are always like a great indicator of a good investment when you buy in towns with good school systems. And we see that with international buyers coming in. They're flooding the towns with great school systems.
Hmm.
So, whether you're a $2 million buyer or a $15 million buyer, towns with good school systems, great locations, will always be a great place to put your money.
What are you considering high end, right? What are you considering high end, but essentially entry level for a good amount of buyers, like first time home buyers? And what's the demographic? What's the makeup of these buyers that you're seeing?
Yeah, no. The high end can be defined so differently depending upon the communities you work in. In the communities I work in, the Westons, Wellesleys, Chestnut Hills, Brooklines, high end really is, 5 million plus. And it goes from now to 10 million plus. Um, so once again, the market that I'm seeing or somebody buying their first home that we just sold that was in the $4.5 million range. They're all in finance, generally speaking. They're entrepreneurs or they're in finance, whether it's private equity, it's their hedge funds, and that's what's driving the market in the Metro West. Biotech um, and research and education is really the draw of Boston in terms of companies and relocation. Um,
Mhm.
the commute close to the city because people in a hybrid situation are commuting, and either driving in or commuting in. But the finance community is really driving our market, and people are very carefully looking at the stock market versus interest rates
Yes, yeah.
as they fluctuate and their bonuses. And we know the certain times of the years that these companies give bonuses. Um, and that really is driving the high-end market in the Metro West.
Well, that is really helpful. I feel like this whole podcast would be helpful for, a number of people, specifically, obviously, people that are thinking about selling, right? And obviously, agents that are going to be servicing these clients, be it a buyer or a seller. You really have to have your hand on that pulse and know exactly, to your point, just what's the seasonality, when's the best time to launch things, who's going to be looking at this. Like I said, this isn't necessarily the types of listings that people are out there trolling the internet for. Their advisor has to bring these to them, and you need to make sure it gets in front of them. Obviously, the Sotheby's network that's the main thing, right? With the Sotheby's network, if you could talk us through just how you utilize that network and make sure that these are these listings that you're representing, and let us know if you have anything coming on or anything on right now that you can point to.
Well, the reason I sold my company and I chose to work for this brand is not only the amazing people that are behind the scenes and the leadership at the company, but once again, I don't have to explain to my clients, that what is this brand? It's luxury. It's talks to the luxury audience. Whenever somebody really wants to look at the iconic properties that are internationally on the market, they go right to the Sotheby's website. So, but learning to work the network has taken me a few years. And I'm in a private networking group that has over 100, our trusted network, that has over 100 agents run by Stan Ponte out of the Sotheby's corporate office in Manhattan. And I've used my sphere of influence and built relationships with agents in feeder markets that that are have clients that are likely to relocate in our market. And after a couple of years, I'm just seeing such huge success with the relationships I've built and the networking. And not only is it to get a referral, but it's to really have a sense of the pulse of what's going on in Westchester, what's
Mm-hmm.
going on in Manhattan, what's going on in Miami, Dubai, um, other markets that could affect our market. And in talking global, it's understanding what other markets are doing and how it impacts ours. And that has brought such a breadth to my high-end clientele. I can't begin to tell you. Because I think years ago, people got very insulated and they worked in one geographic area. And they used to talk about the company that they worked with, the brand. Oh, they're global. But you have to embrace that and create relationships to make it bring value to your client, whether it's sending them a listing you have that they might have the client for, or getting eyeballs on it on the website. And it's just been not only rewarding, I've seen the effects, it works.
Yeah. Yeah, it's truly working together. There's real synergy. It's not just kind of like pay to
Mhm.
play or say I'm global. That doesn't mean anything. Who can you point to? Who do you know well? Who can you pick up the phone and talk through the listing that you have or how the market's going so that you know how to price things? Because to your point, I think this kind of where we started this conversation, this high-end market, it's more of like it's more it's indicated by New York City market, right? It's indicative of LA. You're going to be talking to people with listings in that same price point across the nation. They're going to have helpful information for you as opposed to another broker necessarily in your town. Because if it's in a different price range, it's probably not, the feedback isn't going to be the same and it's not going to help you price it or set expectations for your seller.
Also, your clients are global. I mean, they once again, they're vacationing in Nantucket. They're flying to Palm Beach back and forth, and to create like partners in those areas, it really brings value to your clients. Whether it's
Right?
giving them a great referral or networking your listings that while somebody's sitting in Palm Beach, they're going, "Oh my God, wow, this listing works in Brookline or this, and so it's creating your network that works
Mhm.
for you, and it's been pretty powerful working with
That's
Sotheby's
all.
that way.
What advice would you give just to kind of leave the audience with? But do you have advice if anyone's listening? I know we have a lot of agents across the globe really that listen, but someone that's trying to break into this high-end market and have that be their consistent client base. Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think once again, somebody that works with an agent, they choose that agent. They really, it's not just all of a sudden going on Zillow and then landing in their lap. They've researched it. They're usually personal referrals. And so when you're starting in the business, it's not something that happens overnight. I've been working in the business over 30 years. You build that clientele very slowly. And once again, all of a sudden you see the results. So my advice to somebody who's trying to get into this market is align yourself with somebody as a mentor, because somebody is wants to work with somebody with experience, and it doesn't happen overnight. To bring value, my clients are very value driven, and performance driven. So they want us to bring them value. It's very easy for them to see a listing online, but you've got to bring value. So it's not only being in their world so that you understand what they're looking for, and being at events and being at fundraisers, but they want experience. And so align yourself with somebody that will take you under their wing and mentor you, and then use your sphere of influence to bring in and have somebody that legitimizes that experience for you if you don't have it.
I love that. And honestly, I didn't even know that that was going to be your answer. Obviously, we did a little bit of a discovery call, but that's really been the genesis for this whole podcast. Is my experience is that the best people in the business are always willing to help and like to. They've learned so much. Someone like you has so much experience, especially in your specific markets and the different, high end. And that's things where you can definitely get into the business and hustle. But these are things that, you want to kind of level up, right? You always hear people want to raise their average price point. They want to understand different towns and markets. And what I've found is people that have really done well are just always, just like yourself, more than willing to share. And that's what this podcast has turned into. And so I'd love to leave everyone with that and just know if you want to reach out to Amy, if you need to get in touch with her, you can reach out to me and I will put you guys in touch right away. I don't know if you want to share your Instagram handle just so everyone could find you.
Yeah, it's at amymizner.com.
Awesome. And anyone that's listening here, feel free, please subscribe. We always love to have everybody on here, and we're so appreciative to have you, Amy. Thank you for your time today.
You're welcome.